Okay, welcome to all of you to this session of the seminar in Partial Differential Equations and Applied Mathematics that we are celebrating since 2020. Thank you for being here. Today we have the honor and pleasure to have with us Américo Cunha, a magnificent mathematician and researcher from Brazil. Nowadays, he's a member of the research staff of the National Laboratory for Scientific Computing in Brazil, and he is also an associate professor in Rio de Janeiro State University. Over the years, he has published many articles, book chapters, co-organized different events, and participated in many research projects too. We can also mention that he co-leaders different associations, such as the Brazilian Association of Computational Methods and Engineering, the Dynamics Control and its Applications Committee of the Brazilian Society of Applied and Computational Mathematics, among others. And related to academic work in the university, he has supervised several postdocs, PhDs, master's and undergraduate thesis. I will finish this introduction mentioning some of his research topics. For example, nonlinear vibrations, machine learning and uncertainty quantification for smart structures, and origami-inspired metamaterials and energy harvesting systems. So thank you very much, Américo, for having accepted our invitation to give this talk, and you can start when you want.
Thank you for the introduction, John. Thank you, Juan, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to present our research work for such a distinguished audience. The majority of the people here, I believe, are interested in partial differential equations, and maybe confused a little bit why optimization has to do with that. I will try to show a connection in our research involving differential equations and optimization, non-convex optimization, okay? But I must start with a disclaimer. I'm an applied mathematician, very applied. My background is in engineering, so in general, I'm using PDEs and optimization algorithms more as a tool than a final goal, okay? So what I will present here today is the development of an optimization solver that is very suitable for problems involving differential equations, okay? But our contribution is much more on the computational part than in the foundational part of the theory, okay? So, and I will present many examples of topics which we have interesting as a research topic, but more applied research topic, okay? I will tell about energy harvesting especially, which is one of the topics our group is involved in the last 10 years, in which we use these tools, these applied math tools, to improve the energy recovery process in such interesting devices, okay? But let me start talking about optimization and why it is important. Why people still studying optimization is not just compute the derivative, make equal to zero and solve this equation. No, it's much more than that. And the reason for that is because optimization is an essential component of many other areas, okay, like design, machine learning, data simulation, control, okay? We needed to solve extremely complex optimization problems in all of these tasks I'm mentioning here, okay? From the design of a building, maybe, or a medical implant, when we needed to assimilate data to improve the quality of predictions of a weather forecasting model, for instance, or an epidemic model. When we are training a machine learning model, we needed to solve an optimization. In a very simplistic way, you can think that machine learning is optimization with a large data set. It's much more than that, but optimization is essential in machine learning and control, okay? When you wish to control a certain system, a certain dynamical system, you need to solve sooner or later an optimization problem, okay? This is the reason we use a lot of optimization, because in our research group, these four words that you can see here are intersecting in the challenges we face, okay? So what's the general framework we're going to consider in this presentation, okay, that is suitable for all of these tasks I just mentioned? We have a certain objective function, okay, in which we are interested in find a point in the domain which minimizes this function. I'm not worried here with the regularity of this function at this moment, okay? You can think it is as ugly as you wish, okay? Could think it's just with the constraints. We have bounds, okay, which provides inequality constraints, which will limit the values of the x, the point that I will pick in the domain. I may have equality constraints, I may have inequality constraints, okay? How this is related with differential equations, as I mentioned, in the problems we have interest in, typically the objective function and the constraints, all of them, or a few of them at least, are defined by differential equations, ODEs or PDEs, okay? So, my original training is in dynamics. In dynamics, before starting to attack a problem, we needed to ask ourselves, is this a linear or a nonlinear dynamical system? When we are in the optimization world, the proper question you should ask yourself is not linear and nonlinear, but convex or non-convex, okay? First, to try to choose the solver you're going to apply to handle your problem, okay? For convex functions, you have a powerful arsenal like gradient descent, sequential quadratic programming algorithms, interior point methods, semi-definite programming. You have a lot of theory developed that can handle the problem. For non-convex, the problem is much more difficult, okay? We have some general techniques like genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, simulated annealing, but the theoretical world is much less developed. And this is one of the reasons why this second world is much more challenging and interesting in some sense. Okay? Some characteristics of these problems here. For convex world, the convex solvers typically are fast. They have a very robust mathematical background, okay? You still have open problems in convex optimization, but the ground is very well established, okay? Almost all the theory is developed and it's mature now, so that you have a lot of confidence in the methods and you know where they work and where they don't work, okay? You have robust implementations available. What are the drawbacks of the convex solvers? In general, they demand on gradient information. Okay, you need to know the derivative to apply them. And because of that, they are local methods. Okay, they are very sensitive to the initialization points. Okay, they may be tracked in local minima and local maxima. Okay. For the non-convex solvers, in general, we don't have this sensibility to local points, okay? They are insensible. Typically, they don't need gradient, which is good, okay? Today you have robust implementations available, but what are the drawbacks in this case? Because of the lack of gradient, typically these algorithms are very slow. Okay, they don't have a good sense of direction like the gradient descent invariance methods. Okay, the mathematical theory is not so well developed, so you don't have a so clear view where these methods work and where they don't work. Okay, and for practitioners, in my view, the most fundamental, the strongest drawback is this last one. You have many control parameters, and the meaning of them typically is obscure. If you're an expert in the method, maybe you know well the meaning of the hyperparameters of the method, but if you are just a user, typically they are extremely obscure in a point that may compromise your proper use of the algorithm. Okay? Said that, what I wish to present today for you, I wish to present a non-convex solver. Okay, it's a meteoristic, but in my view, it presents some critical differentiations with respect to those traditional non-convex solvers I mentioned before, which make it very attractive. And very surprisingly for me, this technique is relatively low explored in the literature, especially for continuous optimization, which are the problems which I face more in the optimization world. Okay? The technique I wish to introduce to you today is known as the cross-entropy method. Okay? I'm showing here a timeline which gives an overview of the development of this technique. It was born in 1997 as a technique to simulate rare events. Okay, it was not developed initially as an optimization technique. It was constructed to simulate rare events, but very soon after the development, its creator, Ervin Rubinstein, who was a professor in Technion in Israel, realized that this technique could be easily adapted to handle very complex optimization problems. And in 1999, it was presented to the world as an optimization technique too. Okay? The years that followed that, the initial conception and introduction of the technique, were followed by theoretical developments. Okay? In early 2000s, between 2000 and 2005, more or less, you saw several experts in optimization studying this algorithm and proving some basic theorems which establish a good and a solid background for its use. Okay. In 2004, Rubinstein published this book that you can see here and which I have here. Let me show you. Which synthesized all the developments regarding this method, theoretical developments, applications, until that year. So it's a 20 years old book. Now it's a little bit old, but the fundamentals of the method are all there. In the years after 2004, this method gained some popularity in combinatorial optimization community because it was introduced in some very influential literature, like these handbooks on Monte Carlo simulation methods. Okay, these 3 books here tell about this method, and I believe these helped to popularize the method. But very surprisingly for me, until 2017, there was no library implementing this method available in the literature. No robust implementation could be found in the literature before 2017. In 2017, there was a paper presenting a library in R, in this statistical language. Okay. In 2019, this method entered in the UQLab MATLAB package, okay, but just for unconstrained problems. And I started to use this method in 2016, okay, before the first library. I developed my own implementation, was not so organized and not so robust at that time, but I was always asking myself, why no one developed a library until now? And In the middle of the pandemic, I decided to put this in a black box library, okay? And I developed it first for unconstrained problems. This was 2021, okay? And in 2024, I decided to put this in a setting that can handle inequality and equality constraints. So in last year, we put this code available for Word. It's called CE-opt, and it has the implementation of the cross-entropy method in a very general optimization setting, as I mentioned in the beginning of this seminar, okay? Capable to handle equality and inequality constraints of arbitrarily form, okay? You don't have no prior hypothesis about them. Can be discontinuous, could be with the level of differentiability you wish. What I will do now, folks, I will give you a general idea how this algorithm works, and then I will go to the math to explain the fundamentals, the theoretical background, which make it a very interesting technique in my view, okay? The general picture is this. You have a deterministic non-convex optimization problem. You wish to get a global optimum, which is hard in general, okay? I will trade this. I will do what? I will change this deterministic problem by a stochastic problem in which I wish to compute what? Not an optimum in a first glance, but I wish to estimate a rare event, okay? But this rare event estimation process will allow me to compute good estimates for the global optimum I'm looking, okay? So I randomize in some way this non-convex function, and I will get a rare event estimation problem. Using adaptive importance sampling, which is something trivial to implement in a computer, I will get a certain optimal distribution, which is capable to provide me good estimates for the global optimum I'm seeking. The mean or the median, for instance, of this optimal distribution may provide a good approximation for this value I'm looking for, okay? Or realizations of this optimal distribution may provide good estimations, okay? This is the general picture. Let's go to the math. Imagine I have this non-convex function here, okay? You have a single global optimum here. I'm denoting the optimal point as x star and the optimal value as gamma star, okay? Imagine you don't know this optimal value and you guess an approximation for this gamma here, okay? This gamma is bigger than this because this is the minimum value, okay? But let's look the neighborhood which this value gamma define around the global optimum, okay? You see that you have a certain neighborhood around this global optimum defined by this parameter gamma. If we compare the domain, this neighborhood, with the domain, this is small. So pick a point at random in this neighborhood in red is a rare event. Do you agree? Let's define a certain distribution associated with this non-convex function, and let's draw points at random in the domain. Very few of them are expected to be in this small red neighborhood if this distribution is very broad, if it is defined more or less giving equal weights among the domain. On the contrary, if we concentrate a lot this distribution around this interval, many points are expected there, okay? What I can call your attention here is having a suitable distribution, we may approximate the global optimum point through realizations of this distribution, okay? This idea allows me to construct an algorithm to construct an approximation for the solution of that global optimization problem. How? Imagine you have a suitable distribution, okay, which is represented here by this density F. Okay, this is a probability density function. X is the random variable, and U is the parameters, is a vector which parameterize the distribution, okay? You may think it carries the mean and the standard deviation of the distribution or other suitable parameters, okay? We can draw many independent and identically distributed samples of this distribution, okay? And with these samples, we may estimate this probability here. Probability of the objective function evaluated in the random variable be less than or equal to a parameter gamma. Let's go back here. F is the objective function. Okay, I randomized the independent variable so that when I put this random variable as an input in this objective function, I have another random variable which will produce random values in the y-axis here. The probability of these values be less than or equal to gamma is small if gamma is sufficiently close to this global optimum, okay? So this probability here is a rare event. Okay, we are trying to compute the probability of a rare event here. How can we estimate that? A very common estimator for that is given by this expectation here of the indicator function of the event. Okay, analytically this is equal to this, and this expectation here can be estimated by this finite sum here. Okay, the best realizations I can use to construct this estimator here may provide high quality estimations of the global optimum. This is very simple in terms of computational implementation. What's the key challenge here? The key challenge is I needed to construct a probability distribution that is very concentrated around this interval here, which is defined by this optimum point. And the optimum point is unknown. If it was known, I was not trying to solve this optimization problem. This is why the problem is challenging, okay? How can I handle that? If you try to solve this problem in a naive way, perhaps you're going to construct a probability distribution that's not well concentrated around the optimum. I can improve that using a procedure that's known as importance sampling. What is importance sampling? I'm trying to compute this probability here, okay? This expectation is equal to this integral, okay? And I'm computing this expectation with respect to the density F. I may multiply and divide the F here by another density G, okay? And I may see now this as another expectation computed not with respect to F, but now with respect to G. Okay? This is equivalent, this probability is equivalent to compute this expectation here. And this may provide a potential improved estimator, this summation here, which approximates this expectation, is a potentially improved estimator for this quantity. Why? Because the density G may be chosen in a way which helps to concentrate the mass of the distribution around that optimum point. Okay? This is a potential solution. But remember, I don't know where is the optimum. Let's forget about this practical inconvenience for a minute and see if we can design this G function, this node, there is another density we're going to use to sample the domain in a very smart way. Can we do that? I improved the density will be one which has low variance around the global optimum. Okay, if I'm able to design a density which the variance, the dispersion around the global optimum is low, this will improve a lot my estimation process. Can I do that? Can I try to minimize? Can I find the density which minimize the variance of that estimator? Yes, I can. Okay? Remember that this estimator is given by this summation here. Okay? As the samples are independent, minimize this is equivalent to minimize this part which is inside the sum. Okay? And I know how to choose this density G in a way that minimizes that. Let's define this G as this fraction here, okay? Indicator function of the event times the density F. And to make this a density, let's normalize divided by the integral of the numerator, okay? But if you pay attention, this denominator is the quantity L I'm trying to estimate, okay? The G defined in this way is a solution for this variance minimization problem. Let's see. We are going to replace here the G in the denominator by this analytical G I put it here, okay? This numerator will cancel with that. This L in the denominator will go up. We're going to have the variance of this L. This L is constant. The variance of a constant is 0. The minimum possible value for a variance is 0. Okay, I found a minimizer. Okay, problem solved. I discovered how to construct a good density and not any good, the best one. Let's go back to the real world. The construction of this analytical solution used L. L is the quantity I'm trying to estimate. I don't know this quantity in practice. So this analytical solution in practice is completely useless. Okay? If it is useless while you computed, it will be important for the theoretical development I will do in a moment. Okay? Let's put our feet back in the ground. What is the practical approach? What I can do in practice? In practice, what you can do is to choose G in the same family of distributions as F, the original density. But you can choose a different parameterization. The original parameterization was done by this blue vector U. I will do an alternative parameterization with this red vector V. Okay? And I will plug this into my estimator. What I'll try to do now is to design this vector V so that this estimator behaves in the best possible way for provide me a good approximation for the solution of the problem. Okay? How can we do that? This is an estimator. Estimator is a random variable. Okay, let's try to minimize the variance of this random variable. Okay? We are going to plug this new estimator in the variance. We will do several long, funny, and hard to show in this slide calculations. Okay? And we are going to show that this minimization problem is equivalent to this one. And this one may be numerically solved using this discrete counterpart that you can see here. If we solve this minimization problem here numerically, we can choose the vector V, the alternative parameterization, in a way that it will minimize the variance of that estimator. This minimization will not produce a zero variance estimator, okay? but depending on the family of distribution, may be low enough to get you good approximations for practical purposes. Why I don't like that solution? Because I needed to do a numerical procedure in some point. Let's try an alternative solution. How can I design my vector V, my parametrization of F, in a way to have a good estimator? Remember that we know the best possible density G. We know that analytically. Let's use the Kullback-Leibler divergence, which you may think that is a distance function. It's not a distance in metric space sense, okay? But it's a useful tool to compare how similar distributions are. Let's compute the KL divergence between the analytical solution and this novel density F, parameterized by the red vector V. The KL divergence is composed of two parts. The first one is called differential entropy of G, and the second one is called cross entropy between F and G. Okay? If you see the differential entropy here, it depends only on the original parameterization U. The cross entropy part depends on the old parameterization and the new one. What I will try to do, I will try to minimize the KL divergence. I will try to choose the novel parameterization in a way to minimize that. Okay? I will show in a minute that this optimization problem here has an extremely elegant analytical solution, which is given by the maximum likelihood estimator. Okay? Okay, we wish to minimize this. We are choosing the red vector to minimize. Pay attention, the first term don't depend on the red vector. So it's useless for our optimization problem. What we wish to minimize is the cross entropy. Here comes the name of the method, the cross entropy method. Why? Because we are minimizing the cross entropy. Okay? Or maximizing, depending. We're maximizing the cross entropy. Okay, the minus here, the cross entropy is the integral. Okay? Minimize this is minimize the negative of the cross entropy. Minimize the negative is equivalent to maximize something. We wish to maximize this cross entropy. Okay? Let's pay attention that this integral here with this density in blue put on the right here is equivalent to the expectation of this quantity here taken with respect to the old parameterization U. Okay? So what we have here, we are trying to find the parameterization which maximizes this mean here, taking the samples with respect to the original parameterization. Okay? So an estimator for that is given by this discrete sum here. Okay? But pay attention in the first term in the sum is the indicator function of this event here. The event which corresponds to the objective function be less than or equal to that number gamma we choose in the beginning of the seminar. Okay? Remember that this event is rare. Not many points are expected to fulfill this condition here. If we consider just these points, because outside the set of these points, this indicator function will give me 0. This summation here will be simplified to a summation in a certain small set, which I will call the elite set. Okay? The important point set. Maximize this summation here, for those of you which are very familiar with statistics, is what? Is the maximum likelihood problem. Okay? This novel parameterization I'm looking for is the solution for this problem is the maximum likelihood estimator for the density F. Let's compare the two approaches. The variance minimization one needs to solve a non-convex optimization problem, which in general don't have analytic solution. So typically it's very expensive because it must be done numerically. The cross-entropy minimization strategy on the other side for densities in the exponential family admit analytical solution. This is extremely cheap, okay? This is why we're going to pursue it from now on, following the second path. Here you have an overview of the algorithm, okay? We have a probability density parameterized by initial mean and initial standard deviation. We draw samples according to this density. We evaluate the objective function in each one of these points I just draw. I will sort these values. I will pick the smallest realizations which produce the smallest values, and then with them I will construct the elite set. I will use this elite set to update the parameters of the distribution, the mean and the standard deviation, and I repeat this process, okay, until a certain convergence criterion is achieved, and the mean of the median or some realizations may provide me a global optimum estimation after that. Let's see a video which shows this in practice. In the bottom part, in the upper part, you have the function we are trying to maximize here, not minimize, but maximize. In the bottom part, you have the density, okay? Pay attention here. We start with a very broad density. Can you see? We have a very broad density. We sample the domain. We pick the best points and we update the mean and the standard deviation of the density with these best points. This will do what? Typically, the mean will be translated in direction of the optimum, and the variance typically will reduce. So I will shape this broad distribution into, I will shrink the distribution into a very concentrated distribution that is translating, going into direction of the optimum. Can you see? Look, the density is squeezing, and the mean of the density that you can see as that black dot is going into the direction of the optimum. Okay? Okay. This framework I just presented is for unconstrained optimization problems. What I should do if I have a constrained problem? You may apply the Karush-Tucker conditions, and you're going to have a system of equality equations and inequalities that you must solve to get a solution. In practical terms, for numerical optimization, this is not attractive. It's hard to implement. People in numerical optimization trade this for what? Replace the original objective function by another objective function, which in some sense incorporates the constraints, okay? We use what's called here an augmented Lagrangian, okay? We may transform a constrained problem into an unconstrained one using Lagrange multipliers. Here, for questions of numerical stability, in addition to the Lagrange multiplier terms, we use some penalization functions, okay, that will help you to satisfy the constraints and provide a more stable algorithm, okay? So I will solve an unconstrained problem with this augmented Lagrangian function, which has the original function and the constraints And in this defines a certain numerical scheme where I needed to update the Lagrange multipliers, and I have a kind of I have some slackness variables that are used to force the inequalities. Okay, this is classical in numerical optimization. Okay, you have these results from the 90s, which show that this augmented Lagrangian recipe I'm using here is very robust. To give an idea, this is the augmented Lagrangian function that the genetic algorithm of MATLAB uses. We implemented that in our solver. Okay, and we have this black box package called CE-opt. Why it is a black box? For those of you familiar with MATLAB, know that the MATLAB functions in general have a very compact syntax. We developed one very simple. We pass the function, the initial mean, the initial standard deviation, the bounds, another function which compute the constraints, and optionally you may pass some control parameters of the method. What this function will return to you? The optimal point, the optimal value, a flag indicating the termination condition of the algorithm, and some optional parameters that we may use to see the optimization problem, the historic of the optimization, and other control information. Okay? Let's see. If you wish to have access to this, you can do it now. ceopt.org. In this website, in addition to the code, the MATLAB code, and now we have a Python code that will be available very soon in this website, you can also find some tutorials, okay, and examples and instructions on how to install this in your machine. In this last part of the presentation, okay, I will show what? I will show examples and applications of this solver in research problems, okay? I will start with a pedagogical and academic example just to give you a flavor of how the algorithm works, okay? I have an algebraic function here with many optimum, okay? And we wish to minimize this. We start with initial mean here, and the algorithm produce an estimation for the optimum that is here, okay? Which is very, very, very close to an analytical solution. How to code that? It's very simple. You define the formula here, okay? You define the bounds, the initial mean, the initial standard deviation. You may provide some optimal parameters, some control parameters, tolerances, but this is not mandatory. And you call in one line your solver. Okay? This code here generated this figure here. But let's move for a more challenging problem. Okay? And this is a research problem. It was the first problem, in fact, I used this optimization algorithm, the cross-entropy method. I discovered the cross-entropy method when I was handling this problem. What we have here is an energy harvester, okay? It's a device which collects energy. What's the purpose of collecting energy in here? You have a base here, okay, which is moving. You have a sinusoidal movement of this base. You may think this is a machine. You may think this is your heart beating, okay? What's the purpose? Suppose you have a sensor that you need to plug in this machine to monitor its behavior, damage, for instance. And this machine is located in a very difficult place to access, like your chest. If this vibrating device is your heart, and you have a pacemaker with a battery, and you don't want to replace this battery. You wish this battery survive forever, or not forever, but for a long time. The idea is, let's use the vibration of the environment to power this device. Okay? Energy harvesting idea is that. The harvester here is located here. You can see that you have a beam attached to this moving base. which deforms as a consequence of the movement of the base. Okay? This deformation, you have some deformation energy, you have kinetic energy of this movement that can be used to power that sensor, that embedded sensor, the battery of the sensor, the battery of the pacemaker. Okay? The mechanical part of the movement of the mechanical part here is described by this ODE that you can see here in the top. The electrical behavior is described by this second ODE. They are coupled, okay, you have a voltage in the mechanical equation, you have a velocity in the electrical equation, but solving that, and this is nonlinear, you have a cubic term here, you don't have analytical solution in terms of elementary functions. After solving that, with the voltage, you can compute the mean power which this harvest provided to you. What's our purpose here? We wish to play with the geometric parameters here and the forcing parameters in a way that we wish to maximize the power recovered. Okay, we wish to design the system to maximize the recovered power. But we must consider some constraints. These dynamics here may be chaotic. So you may have an output voltage like this one or like this one. And I don't know you, but I don't want to plug my phone or any other electrical device in this voltage signal here because it's not good for practical use of electricity. We need something like that. It's much easier to rectify for final use. So I must impose a constraint that guarantee I must obtain a design that can guarantee that the output voltage will be in this way and not in this way. Okay? I will use for that the 0-1 test for chaos. This is a kind of statistical test for chaos and provide me a binary classifier. It receives as an input a time series and return it to me 0 if the dynamics is regular and 1 if it is chaotic. Okay? I wish a regular dynamics, so I have what constraint here? The chaos classifier must be equal to 0. I have an equality constraint, but a very challenging constraint. Why? Pay attention in the domain here. Okay, I'm playing here with the excitation frequency and excitation amplitude. You have regions in which chaos is dominant. You have other regions where chaos and regular behavior are exchanging in a very crazy way. Okay, you have many jump discontinuities in this constraint here. I cannot use gradient-based methods here because the constraint is not differentiable. This is very challenging in terms of numerical optimization problem. Okay, this is a challenging and non-differentiable problem. How can we handle? First solution, brute force. Let's discretize the domain using a fine grid. Okay, 256 by 256. This will give me 65,000 functional evaluations. Functional evaluation here, remember, must solve a system of differential equations. And in an i7 computer in 2020, took 4 hours. In 2017, this problem used to take 12 hours. Okay? The hardware evolved a little bit, but this i7 computer takes 4 hours. And here you have the solution. Okay? It is respecting the constraint? Yes. And pay attention how hard to navigate is the landfill of this, the landfill of this optimization problem. Let's use the cross-entropy method, sampling the domain with 50 points in each step of the algorithm and considering a lead sample set with 10% of the samples.
Excuse me, Americo.
Yeah.
We have 1 or 2 minutes left because
I will finish with this. Okay. 5 minutes. The same problem, just 1,300 evaluations of the objective function. Can you see? In red, you have the brute force solution. See how quick the cross entropy arrived there? Okay. If I change the number of samples, I change the time, but you can see that's very competitive. And I should add, if you increase the number of parameters, the efficiency is reduced, but it's still very competitive. With 2 parameters as decision variables, 4 minutes. With 4, 35 minutes. If you wish to see more, you can check this publication here. Okay. Just to tell about other applications, we tested in many benchmark optimization problems. It performed well. We tested in problems with challenging constraints like this one. Okay, we tested in machine learning, in models, in problems which we try to set a model to match the observations you have. This is a calibration problem, optimization problems, okay, control problems, and this is a control problem with fractional operators. We're trying to find the exponents of the fractional operator so that this controller can work in an optimized way. And this is a machine learning algorithm to discover ODEs from time series, okay? This is not the best algorithm. See, cross entropy is not the best algorithm for this problem. You have good convex approximation algorithms, but what I'm highlighting here, this is very challenging because you have a regularization in this zero semi-norm, okay? The cross entropy was able to handle the problem, and you see that it learned the correct differential equation. A differential equation that's a good approximation for the differential equation which produced the original time series. That's it. I thank my collaborators in this work, Professor Limarco for the invitation, the seminar organization. I thank you the financial support of these agencies and your attention especially. If you wish to see more, you will have this preprint that you can find in the ceopt.org website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Americo, for your interesting talk, and I think that it has been also very clear to understand, and thank you for your effort. Yes, so now I think that Juan has opened the microphones, so if someone has any question, comment, or something to say, he or she will be very welcomed. So we will wait a bit just in case someone has any question. If no, meanwhile, Americo, I would like to tell you that I have liked the representation that you have done with the video, no, trying to find the maximum, no, in the yes, I have liked that. Also the use of the augmented yes, yes, it was before. Also the use of the augmented Lagrangian, I thought that it was interesting. Advanced, no, in order to add those terms to balance, no, the constraints. And yes, and then I have one question in the when you were presenting the Kullback-Leibler divergence minimization, only by curiosity, in that function dkl, inside the integrals appear some logarithms. Do you know what was the reason why they were introduced there in those terms, or in logarithmic terms?
The logarithmic terms.
Do you
Well,
know the reason why?
the KLG, this comes from information theory.
Mhm.
And this is related with they have a quantity that's no information, okay, which intuitively measure the amount of information you have encoded in your distribution. And this has to do with the average information, okay, more or less. Entropy is the average of the information, okay, and this logarithm here comes in the information quantity. You introduce a logarithm in some sense to, let's think the discrete case. I think it's easier to explain. You may have a big number of states. So taking the logarithm instead of considering the distribution itself, reduce the number of states, make it easier you work with this quantity. Okay, the origin of the logarithm information is that to make
Yes.
to reduce the number you're dealing here, because the number of microstates may be very large.
Yes.
Let's say 1 trillion. When you take the logarithm of 1 trillion, is a much more amenable quantity to handle.
Yes, it makes sense. Thank you for your answer. And I think that you have done a great work also developing the program or package CE-opt, no? That you have said in MATLAB. So, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are more questions or someone that wants to comment something here in the audience. Okay, so if not, thank you very much, Americo Cunha. I have enjoyed your presentation, although it is very far from my knowledge and my work, but thank you. And
It was a pleasure to present the thing.